you know, so cool that it was so tied, I think.
Yeah. Well, here we are going live. We are streaming now live on Aloha I Need Down Living Conversations, or for short, I Need Living Conversations. I'm Julian Katari. I'm with Blue Heron Women. We're talking about new places and our future marcas and the places where we will. I pronounced very Englishy marcas.
Yeah.
Marca
So
is
like I do.
it's an Andean word that means a land, a territory, and that's what. There's a lot to learn about that. You want to check out all the other videos. This is the 200th, and I don't even remember now what number it is. And I
15,
have to
I
go
think.
216th.
15 or
No,
16, 14,
yeah,
something like that.
something like that. Video, and we're talking today about the world of the psyche, the human soul, and maybe spirit, human nature. And to know what that is about, you're going to have to stay around and hear it aloud, because this is stuff that is deep, it's extensive, it's profound. It's not something that could be recorded or explained in a minute and a half reel. So you have to get something to drink and sit down and get comfortable to listen to this conversation, to this sharing. So welcome everyone. So what is the human psyche? What we've seen different parts of this. What specifically do you think is
Well,
different in this one?
it's well, remember we were talking, we've been calling the psyche and human nature and the soul the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's but before we go on, Marca, Spain also uses the term marca for land area.
Marca, because it's not in
Yeah.
Spanish. It comes from Quechua Aymara.
Well, in Spain it's spelled Marca.
Okay. Wow.
But yeah, when I was looking at the Spanish government, yeah, they have marcas.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it is. So, okay, so the world of the psyche, or human nature, or the soul. All miseries in human affairs come from our personal incomprehension or consciousness of the order of the universe, which would be the ignorance of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Evolution is an exteriorizing process, and it's a dual process. It's involuntarily physical and biological on the surface, and intelligently self-creative and vitally persistent underneath and within. All life on Earth, all life that dies on Earth survives in the psyche. So the psyche is it's part of the imaginal world, or the Nawal, but
Mm-hmm.
it's in the fact, that it's invisible, but it's still not the one source.
Okay.
So all life that dies on Earth survives in the psyche. The most tragic omission, then, for mankind due to scientific and intellectual externalism is the knowledge that within the human nature, or the psyche or soul, exists the astonishing living inner world in which humanity and all species survive death in vital energetic form. In the beginning, there was no time nor space, no light nor darkness, no form nor dimension. From this oneness was only endless motion, which moved with infinite speed in all directions. And wherever and whenever infinite motion moves in all directions, it has to intersect itself. And so spiralic movements began to form in a process of differentiation. Forces producing spirals from the periphery toward the center form, and forces producing decomposing spirals from the center to the periphery form, from all this moving in all directions and intersecting. So from the motion of galaxies to the motion of pre-atomic particles, all of us are spiralically formed and governed by the yin centrifugal and expanding force, tendency, and direction, and the yang centripetal and contracting force, tendency, and direction. The yang force, the course of contraction and physicalization, is the course of materialization, while the yin force, the course of expansion and dephysicalization, is the course of spiritualization, making us into spirit again. Right. When the yang course accelerates, matter is formed, the molecules move faster, and it generates a spinning motion, resulting in higher temperatures. Conversely, the course of spiritualization expands and decomposes matter, making the motion of molecules slower and produces a lower temperature. Life, when it first started on our planet, our Mother Earth, continued in the most elementary form for a long period before suddenly exploding into infinitely more complex and varied organisms. The delay occurred while the human nature, or the psyche, the soul, was forming the psychic field, forming a great reservoir and pressure of vital life. So in the beginning, life which had survived death on Earth had no particular form in the psychic field yet. Life on the surface was too simple for the surviving psyche to have an individual shape or conscious identity. But as the many species became more abundant and firmly entrenched on Earth, vital replicas of the organisms began appearing in the psychic mass as doubles, or what we could call doppelgangers. The psychic field, or human nature, soul, was now becoming a space where the double of every experimental of life on Earth was held. However, only so long as a species managed to survive and continue to evolve on the surface did the psychic doubles have a psychic image within. Otherwise, they tend to disintegrate and vanish into the ether, into the one. Mm-hmm. Compared to their physical counterparts, the psychic doubles possess a more intense and enduring reality. They don't die, they simply change their energetic frequency or image. So half of a life form like a centaur is impossible on Earth, half human, half horse, right? But yet in the psychic world, halves and pieces of developing life forms are the natural order of things. The purpose of evolution, then, at any time is to make life on Earth more conscious. And the first life forms only possessed instinct. It is the experience or knowledge or gnosis of having survived life and death, plus the urge to live or experience again, is what instinct is. And so all life is instinctive because all life has survived death. There is a limit. We haven't survived our body forms, but we've survived death. There is a limit to how far instinct can serve the purpose of increasing consciousness, though it could never provide sufficient pause in the awareness of an organism to sustain reflective self-consciousness, which is the next evolutionary requirement. So for that, more complex bodies or organisms had to be evolved. So the next stage involved an extraordinary psychic human nature performance, which led to the development of the mammalian body. Sunlight contains the initiating force behind self-consciousness, and the physical organ that made this momentous cosmic culturing possible was the pineal gland. The appearance of the pineal gland in the vertebrates coincided with the appearance of the first senses of sound and vibration. So when amphibians crawled out of the seas, they became the test organs for the sense of sound. Both they and their descendants had the pineal gland. It was the bony vertebrate structure of the first amphibians and later reptiles that were pressed full length against Mother Earth that gave rise to the sense of hearing. Vibrations transmitted through the ground instead of through water eventually became a sensitivity still in the bone to vibrations coming through the air, which is hearing. So the increased warning or distance which creatures gained from each of the developing superior senses equaled the evolutionary distance traveled towards self-consciousness and the appearance of creative two-legged beings called humans. Self-conscious development was a growing sense of separation or distance from the environment or perceived events, giving time for reflection. All animals have the pineal gland and the five senses, and some of our animals can be called self-conscious. Most people say they can't be, but Because
Oh,
most
yeah.
all of them, most all of my animals have some degree of self-consciousness, just not nearly like we do.
Mhm.
The difference between man and animal lies in the veil of opaqueness. There is a psychic membrane stretched across the back of all optical organs that have not yet evolved to the peculiarity of excellence known as the human eye. The human eye is distinct in having no psychic membrane, although I think some of us do. I think that's the veiling. I'd never heard about it, but yeah, I think this gives man's vision a unique reflective factor, which increases the depth or significance of what we see, and so we are cognitive and perceptive beings. Freed of the membrane, the psychic membrane, man is able to reflect his awareness as perceptions through his psychic double or his soul to the intellect, and the one formative substance behind the psychic double, behind the soul. This reflective depth that is peculiar to man determines two things. First, the power of the intellect related to the five sense perceived world, and second, depending on the clarity of his psychic double or his soul, the power of seeing directly the intangible world. In the evolution of all species, the veil of opaqueness, which is also a membrane of forgetfulness, and the pineal gland were intimately, vitally connected. The function of the veils was to shield the pineal from the effects of the sunlight until such time as a suitable potential animal body had evolved for the eye, the vital intelligence in man. So in the evolution toward self-consciousness, the eye of vital intelligence seated deep behind the veil of opaqueness and the psychic double had no sense of time, nor did any exterior species. For the first time, sunlight streamed into humanity's unconscious via the pineal gland, and we were cognitive man now and had the feeling of breaking away from our inner mother and coming to our senses. Humanity was finally balanced with their senses, and so it was a wonderful, simple state of living and being, a state of yesterday and today, and tomorrow never came. However, one day tomorrow did come because humanity invented it. Instead of accepting the natural cycle of forms disappearing into the earth, humanity started to register the disappearance as death. And so now we started becoming attached to our external senses and losing our knowledge of our inner immortal world. This new perception now meant that humanity was starting to believe their senses exclusively, and so attaching themselves to the appearance of things. And this is why I think maybe there's still that psychic veil, which he also calls the forgetfulness, right?
Mhm.
We extended ourselves so far that we are now outside of nature, and nature to us has become a purely external sense, a perceived form that no longer provides us with the intimate feeling of oneness with the earth and all of life. So in this new externalized way of living, all that our ancestors could see in the environment was the threat of death, and that's all the vast majority of us still see. So tomorrow became the answer. With this invention, humanity could break out of today and create a new world of his own, a world of progress and continuity as distance between ourselves and death. So instead of living naturally for today, humanity began to live unnaturally for tomorrow. By creating innumerable problems around a supposed future or tomorrow, man was able to keep his mind busy and distracted. And when I say man, I'm not saying man exclusively. I'm meaning human, all of humanity, right? From having to face the big problem of today, which is death. This psychotic nature can be seen operating in every single one of our worries today. To worry today, though, we have to first assume that we're not going to die today. Because if we knew that today was our last and our human body was going to disappear back into Mother Earth today, all our worries would vanish.
Yeah.
So death gets projected as an event in the future, and it ceases to be a necessary consideration as a threat or end to the progress of the whole. The individual might die, but the world of tomorrow would live on in the naming of things with his name, and in the hopes and imaginations of all the other people around. So this is why we have everything named after dead white guys. In those days, humanity was still young enough to be born with individual consciousness, with the knowledge of their inner immortality intact. However, under the new order of time and ignorance, it was essential for the individuality to be eliminated. If it was allowed to mature, such self-knowledge of immortality would destroy the illusion of tomorrow, and all the sophisticated progress of depending on the world for existence would go away. The unreal world, the false world, the Maya. Right. So such individuality would possess the power to start turning back the wave of progress and return man to the point of sanity where tomorrow and the past no longer matter. So to keep humanity from such a dangerous self-knowledge, the subconscious of every child was instilled from birth with the idea that his is a world which goes on and on, irrespective of what happens to anyone. Tomorrow is all that counts. In this man's world of progress, all individuals are expendable because they actually have no place in it. And since the individual is the only one who dies and the world does not recognize death, dead individuals are remembered as figures or as the positions they filled and are forgotten as humans. And so, because of this, we have our false self-world of intellectual materialism today. And because we still don't understand that or know that our inner divinity is immortal and timeless, even after we drop our bodies or our earth robes, we are absolutely focused on death instead of life. Mm-hmm. And it's time to let this false psyche go that we've created around the fear of death and just live for life. Mm-hmm. Live it with a life focus. So that's all I have on the psyche, but yeah, it's
you said on last conversation, I really like this where I remember this ancient, well, not this ancient, a long time ago, this Toltec trainer that I then got kind of distance from, and he would base many of his teachings on telling people you got to live life like if it's the last day. You got to live life like if it's the last day. And the more thought I've been given to that, I mean, I can understand a side of that, part of that, but there's another side, and I don't know if it has to do with what you just shared, but I do feel that we should know when we're gonna die, and that makes a difference. And you can't live, and it would be different if you knew you were gonna die tomorrow. That would make a difference, right? I mean, it would just change everything. So we really don't live. We with this uncertainty of, I don't know if I'm going to die tomorrow. No, you're not going to die tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, we first have to assume that we're not going to die today or tomorrow, right? So that we can, yeah.
Yeah, it's such a blank kind of, there's so many just blank types of spiritual teachings that, there's a word for it. It's not blank. It's like cover it all, kind of like one size fits all kind of thing. That no, we got to get a lot more. That's what this is for. So, are you going to take us into another section,
No, that's all I have on that for now. But well, I mean, in that psyche, that human nature, and this is why. I mean, everything, all life forms on Earth are part of we have the three terms: psyche, human nature, or soul, right? That all mean the same thing. And you go, well, human nature should be combined to only humans. No. It's I don't know how recently we started using the term human for only Homo sapiens, but think
Mhm.
about the fact how alike we are with all our animal family members.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah. It's
this is
almost,
where,
if you take it from Nawalic Mesoamerican teachings, it's almost, you see a lot of they call it zoomorphism, kind of like human animals. And a way to explain that for me would be beyond the thrill of, oh, did we transform ourselves into animals, or that animals transformed themselves into humans. I mean, you can even look at it scientifically. You know, this DNA thing that we share 99% of DNA with animals.
yeah,
We're one and the same in that sense.
yeah, we are. Absolutely.
And
That's
so
why,
it's almost like we're part of that. It's you know, we evolved from animals, which means that uh, that we are animals, and
we are. We have a mammalian body. Absolutely.
there's not that big. I mean, they're part of the consciousness. That they're part of this world. They have just as important roles as we
Well,
do,
it,
even for our
yeah,
psyche, for our, you know, how crucial is a little animal in a kid's life? It's like vital. It's a crucial thing.
yeah,
That's why we have pets, because
yeah.
we need that interaction with. I mean, you go. I don't know. You learn a lot of things. I think a lot of things that I learned as a little kid, I learned from my cat. Now that I meditate on that,
Yeah.
I used to have this very amazing black cat,
Yeah. Yeah.
and she
Before,
taught me a lot of things. And now that I realize, like, where did I learn all this from? And it wasn't a human; it was a cat.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So it's really
No, it
good.
is. And if we think about the fact that every image, every form that has been on the face of the earth still exists in the psyche, it doesn't take a stretch to understand why guinea hens look like freaking dinosaurs. Even the turkeys look like dinosaurs, right?
Mhm.
They just got compressed.
Yeah.
The psyche compressed them.
Mhm.
But that's, I mean, guinea hens are the strangest looking things because they I mean, you can see absolutely they could come, you know, a different type of dinosaur.
Yeah. So what are we
So,
gonna? So we're not gonna go into anything else today.
but yeah, no, we're going to go into more on the brain because the psyche
Okay.
actually helped form the brain.
Okay.
Um, so, and we need to understand our brain,
So this
for
is the,
sure.
the psyche, or the mind, shapes everything. So now we go into what it shaped, which
Yeah,
in part would be the brain.
yeah.
Okay.
So, brain circuitry comes to reflect what you do, the neurons, the circuitry. So the cortex of a highly trained musician morphs into something that is measurably different than yours and mine. If you pay careful attention to a region of the motor cortex involved in a hand movement, we would find something amazing. Musicians have a puckering on their cortex, whereas non-musicians don't. And this puckering is shaped roughly like the Greek letter omega. So the thousands of hours of practice on the instrument physically molds the brains of musicians. So what you do over and over becomes reflected in the structure of your brain. And brains reflect not simply the outside world, but more specifically our inner world. A brain's goals lay in a critical role of how play a critical role in how and when it changes. For people like Itzhak Perlman, achieving his expertise depended on desire to achieve it. So let's imagine, for an instance, that Venus and Serena Williams, the tennis players, had a brother named Fred, and that their their parents put a tennis racket in his hands and forced him to do the same training. Imagine that he found tennis repugnant and that he never got any good feedback then, or did he win any contests. So the results of all that practice would be, in his brain, would be absolutely nothing. There's no changing, no puckering. Because his body would be going through the movement, the motions, but it was still misaligned with his internal incentives. So it didn't change it. It wouldn't change his brain structure. So imagine another experiment. Someone is tapping out the Morse code on your foot while someone else plays a sequence of sounds. If you win cash for decoding the messages being tapped out on your foot, there's brain regions involved in touch to that part of your body that would develop a higher resolution. But the regions involved in your hearing won't, because even though that region of your brain is being stimulated also, because you didn't get rewarded for listening to the sounds. You got rewarded for decoding the Morse code tapped out on your foot. So the inputs from the world are the same, but what changes depends on what is rewarded. And that's why the fictitious Fred Williams gets no better on the court, because he derives no reward from it. He doesn't want to do it, so there's no reward. So in his brain, like ours, the present maps of neural territories reflect the strategies that have won positive feedback. And so there are neural mechanisms for desire and reward. Reward is a powerful way to rewire your brain. Using relevance as its North Star, the brain flexibly picks up on important details. Relevance is expressed through widely reaching systems that release chemicals called neuromodulators. An especially important chemical messenger, the neuromodulator, is called acetylcholine. Neurons that release acetylcholine are driven by both reward and punishment. They're active when an animal is learning a task and needs to make changes, but once the task is well established, but not once the task is well established. So the presence of acetylcholine at a particular brain area tells it to change. However, it doesn't tell it how to change. So acetylcholine broadcasts widely throughout the brain, and it can trigger changes with any kind of relevant stimulus, whether it's a musical note, a texture, or a verbal accolade. It is a universal mechanism for saying, this is important, get better at detecting this. And it marks relevance by increasing the territory in your brain that the neurons hold. Acetylcholine's release is modulated by other neuromodulators like dopamine that are involved in the direction of change and encoding whether something was punishing or rewarding. So researchers all over the planet are still working to decipher the complex choreography of the neuromodulatory systems. So AI algorithms don't care about relevance. They memorize whatever we ask them to. And this is the reason why AI is absolutely not human-like and never will be.
Yeah, not even alive-like. Yeah.
Right. It has no capacity to care which problems are interesting or germane. It simply memorizes whatever we feed it. It has no sense of importance except in a statistical sense. Contemporary AI could never by itself decide that it finds irresistible a particular sculpture by Michelangelo, or that it abhors the taste of bitter tea, or that it is aroused by signals of fertility. AI can dispatch 10,000 hours of intense practice in 10,000 nanoseconds. However, it does not favor zeros and ones over others. As a result, AI can accomplish impressive feats. However, it cannot accomplish the feat of being anything like a human.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was very important. We need to understand that before we go on falling in love with our AI.
And I was thinking about that, because I was just thinking that, because then if we're falling in love with that, it means that we ourselves are not that human anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Okay, so brain. The traditional classroom consists of a teacher droning on, possibly reading, and we're talking back to reward and stuff here. So a teacher droning on, possibly reading from bulleted slides. This is optimal for brain changes because the students are not engaged, and without engagement, there is little to no plasticity. The information just doesn't stick. The ancient Greeks even noticed this, so they defined levels of learning. And the highest level, where the best learning occurs, is achieved when a person is invested, curious, and interested. So then a particular formula of neurotransmitters is required, and that formula correlates with investment, curiosity, and interest. The Chinese have an expression that says an hour with a wise person is worth more than 1,000 books. And then that means that when a learner can actively direct their own learning by asking the wise person precisely the question they want answered, the molecules of relevance and reward are present, which allows the brain to reconfigure. So tossing facts at an unengaged person is like throwing pebbles to dent a stone wall.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the first recorded visual illusion was noted by the ever-observant Aristotle. He saw a horse stuck in a flowing river, and he fixedly watched the rescue operation. When he finally looked away, it appeared that everything else, the rocks, the trees, and the land, were flowing in the opposite direction of the river. The easiest way to experience this Aristotle's confusion is to stare at a waterfall. After keeping your eyes locked on a waterfall for a bit, you look over to the rocks to the side of the waterfall and see what the rocks appear to do. They appear to flow upwards. This illusion has come to be known as motion after effect. And why does it happen? Well, the activity of particular neurons in our visual cortex represents downward motion, and the activity of other neurons represents upward motion. They're always in yin, so the world appears to be moving neither up or down. But imagine you watch this downward cascading waterfall for a while, and then close your eyes tightly. When you reopen your eyes, you'll see the rocks appearing to crawl upward. This illusion comes about because of active recalibration.
Mm-hmm.
Your system is exposed to continuous downward motion, and after a while, it assumes it to be the new normal. Your visual system carefully rebalances its expectations to mirror the world. And at this point, it would be to expect more downward movement than upward activity. So when you look away from the waterfall toward the cliffside, the recalibrated set point becomes obvious because now the rocks and trees are flowing toward the sky. So the set point of what counts as standing still has shifted. Your system always wants to set up a ground truth so that it can be better at detecting change. If you look at a featureless scene that is entirely one color, the color will quickly drain away to neutral. And in 1804, a Swiss physician named Ignaz Troxler noted something stunning.
Mm-hmm.
If you stare at a central point in the middle of blobs, all the busyness disappears, and you'll see only a gray mass. This is known as the Troxler effect, and it demonstrates that an unchanging stimulus in your peripheral vision will soon evaporate. Why? Because your visual system is always seeking motion and change. So something fixed quickly becomes invisible. Good information is expected to update, and things that do not change are ignored by the system. So what prevents our kitchen or our workplace from becoming Troxler-esque with all the motionless features disappearing? Well, because most of our world is made up of hard edges, and so it's easier for our visual system to hang on to. Although we're not generally aware of it, our eyes are constantly jumping and jiggling around, and these movements keep the retinal image fresh. Any image that remains fixed in one position on the retina will become invisible. And this phenomenon underscores the fundamental fact that brains care about change. The strategy of ignoring the unchanging keeps the system poised to detect anything that moves or shifts or transforms. It was mentioned that the illusion is a result of adaptation. It's also prediction. If you subtract away the downward motion of the waterfall, this is equivalent to predicting its continued existence. So when the brain circuitry adjusts, it's making a guess about what the world is likely to be in the next moment, and it stops thinking about news that is expected to continue. Your brain doesn't want to pay the energy cost of spiking neurons, so its goal is to reconfigure the network to waste as little power as possible. A quieter nervous system means fewer violations of expectations, and things are going to go approximately as forecast. In the darkness of your skull, your brain is working to build an internal model of your outside world. And how does it do that? Well, what is the neural technology that allows you to zoom in on those data points that don't match your expectations while ignoring everything that is already accounted for? Attention. And that's another thing AI can't do, is pay attention to anything.
Wow.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Attending allows you to put your high-resolution sensors on the problem and figure out how to incorporate it in your model. Changes in the brain only happen when there is a difference between what was expected and what actually happens. So your internal model of the world allows you to make predictions and quickly detect when you're wrong, which tells you where to attend and how to update. So now we then can understand how drugs modify our nervous system. Consumption of a drug changes the number of receptors for the drug in the brain to such an extent that when you look at the brain after a person has died, you can determine his or her addictions by gauging the molecular changes. This is why people become desensitized or tolerant to a drug, because the brain comes to predict the presence of the drug and adapts its receptor expression so it can maintain a stable equilibrium when it receives the next hit. Because the system now predicts a certain amount to be present, more is needed to achieve the same effect. And this recalibration is the basis of the ugly symptoms of drug withdrawal. Withdrawal symptoms vary by drug, but they all have in common a powerful absence of something that is anticipated. This can also give us an understanding of heartbreak. People we love become part of us, so we absorb them into our internal model of the world. Our brain refashions itself around the expectation of their presence. So after the breakup or death, the sudden absence represents a major departure from homeostasis. The hypothesis by science is that the neural circuitry constantly shifts to maximize the amount of information it can extract from the environment. And that it fine-tunes its circuitry to maximize the data it streams from the world, and the fine-tuning is helped along by rewards, which causes broadcasts throughout the circuitry to announce that something worked. Remember, this is all hypothesis. I mean, it's not absolute truth, but it's the closest we've got right now. So the brain gives the illusion that it is settled into stillness, and yet the principles of competition poise it on the hair trigger edge of change. And maintaining neuron territory in the brain is activity dependent. Preserving the ground requires constant vigor. As inputs diminish, neurons change their connections until they find where the action is. And yeah, that's where we'll stop for tonight about the brain. There's not much more.
Yeah, it gets very technical, but
yeah,
it's stuff we would need to know that it's important for us to know if we really want to have sovereignty, have knowledge, have all these studies. We can't live our lives anymore depending on others being the experts and others telling us what things should be or are. We need to ourselves understand everything.
Yeah,
and that's
for sure.
Part of what we're doing and part of what we will facilitate in the council houses in the training
program. Yeah.
So if you're interested in that, if you're a watcher and you want to get into this training, then you're welcome to do so. It's not money bound, so it's not about you having money or not. That, that's not a, we don't sell it. It's not for sale. In fact, we talk a lot about that, where we are in a path of what comes after money. What's
Yeah.
what's the next god? Because that one's getting kind of old. So what are we going to do next week? What are we going to talk about?
We are going to go to biogenesis and the origin of life as discovered by Wilhelm Reich, and orgone energy, along with the function of the orgasm again.
Cool. Wow. Orgone and the orgasm. Science meets spirituality. Science meets the sacred. That's I was thinking about that the other day. It's like, wow, the marriage. We're constantly marrying thing, and that's really important because we tend to live in a divorced world where either you believe in something or either you supposedly know something, and those things never always meet or never share, or one seems to be the negation of the other, where in fact a true unbiased scientific understanding is always going to complement whatever sacred knowledge or ancestral wisdom we have. It's just that our scientific worldview needs a lot of expansion still. We still need to understand that we know very little, and that we know a lot, but then compared to how much there is to know, we don't know that much. We still have to learn so much. And this is the place where we're doing that research. It's not happening at the university. It's happening right here at Aloha Any Doubt Living. So come join us, alohaanydoubtliving.com, to expand your spirit and expand your mind. So that's going to be it. That's it. We want to wish you waterfalls of blessings. Anything else? Are we done for today?
We're done. Yeah.
Okay. Some last message? Anything?
Nope. Just
Okay.
Next week will be on the origin of life, and which is the function of the orgasm.
Okay. Everything's born out of an orgasm. So get ready to come next week.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So we'll see you next week, folks. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Goodbye.